Hello and welcome to the Wealth Channel. I'm Professor Phil Cubeta. I'm here today with Marty Carter, who is a family counselor in the Philadelphia area. She works with financial advisors who are having issues with the clients and helps to prevent the advisor from being caught in the middle. Welcome, Marty.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you for being here. Let's talk about families and money. Why is it so hard for families to talk about money? They have financial advisors, but why is it so hard for them to get deeper in talking about money?
Well, if you think back to the times when you were growing up, there probably were taboo subjects that you didn't talk about. You didn't talk about, in my family, we didn't talk about money, sex, in-laws, outlaws, politics, religion. So I think just historically, culturally, it's difficult for people to talk about it. Many people don't talk about money because they're afraid of losing control over information. If you talk about it, then somebody may know how much you've got or how much you don't have.
Right.
Some families are reluctant to talk about it in front of their kids because they don't want their kids blabbing the information around town. I have some clients who downplay the fact that they have a lot of money because they don't want people hassling them for money. I think there are just lots of different reasons.
If families don't communicate well about money, does that lead to issues or problems?
It does. I think it can create distrust. It certainly creates confusion. I think one reason that I spend a lot of time helping families talk about money came from my own experience of sending our daughter off to college, and as she came out the driveway, I gave her a little piece of paper folded up, a tiny square, and years later she told me that she drove around the corner, opened the piece of paper, it was a check, and that was the first time she had any idea of how much money she had to live on that entire semester. That was really wrong. So I think it really is important that families talk about money, talk about what they can do, what they can't do. I think it's helpful for families to encourage kids to be part of the conversation. You know, for instance, the question would be, do we want to go to Disney World or do we want to buy a car a little bit nicer than the one we talked about? So kids to be part of the conversation. In our house, the rule was always, we welcome any conversations, any questions you have, but the bottom line is your dad and I have 51% of the vote. And that's the way it worked.
How do you get families talking about money in a more meaningful way?
It's something that people don't do on their own, and I wouldn't advise having conversations like this on their own because each person is going to get into their own family history. And I find that the best way to do this is to have someone who's trained as a therapist or has a clinical background that can help people understand what their money beliefs are. And it goes back, if you have a meeting together that's facilitated, that you talk about, you know, what were the lessons you learned about money? What were the messages that you got from your family? Like mine was, money doesn't grow on trees, and what do you think I am, a money machine sort of thing. It's maybe as subtle as those sound, and they're very big generalizations. Kids hold on to that stuff, and it really affects what happens. So the first place to start is exploring your own history with money. Are you good at saving it? Are you good at planning? Are you good at keeping track of it? And then looking at the money beliefs and your attitudes and your behaviors about money, I think are probably the most important.
So what I hear you saying is that you would recommend that advisors not specialize in doing this, and they realize it can be a sensitive area, and that in telling them where to start, you're not suggesting they start there?
I would not start there. In fact, I think it's makes more sense for couples to do their own homework, maybe with a facilitator, so that when they go to an advisor, they've really got a good idea of what it is they want the advisor to do. I was a partner in a financial firm and planning firm and asset management firm, and I would imagine that probably well over 90% of the folks came in to do the planning process. They didn't have a story to tell the advisors about what they wanted.
Right,
what they wanted was a plan.
What could go wrong if an advisor does get into these issues and probes around? What kind of thing could go wrong?
I think the biggest issue is that you are going to walk into something that you can't get out of. You know, the old rule about first do no harm.
Right.
And it can be very innocent. But all of a sudden you'll walk into a story that you don't know where it came from and you don't know how tough it is. The very first day I went to work with this firm, I was invited to sit in on a planning meeting with a couple that had been with the organization for a long, long time. And I first asked if I could draw the family tree so that I knew who the characters were in the family.
Right.
And they gave me the information, and there was stunned silence. And all the advisors, the financial advisors, the planners, and the investment people were all still in the room. And what was so stunning was hearing that they had 2 children, where the estate planning records show that they only had 1. And I said, I have an awkward question to ask, and if you don't want to answer it, it's okay. But I felt comfortable pursuing it because I'm a therapist by training, and I do that.
Right.
But the advisors were white-knuckled, and eventually I suggested that maybe they'd just give us some special time one-on-one so that we could figure out whatever the problem was. The advisors were greatly relieved. They didn't want to get into that kind of stuff.
Well, Marty, thank you very much, and we'll continue the conversation after the break.
We'll look forward to it. Thanks.